22. And I'm going to do a lot of reading tonight, but I've also got a PowerPoint we're going to come back to. We're going to, after we do some reading, we're going to come back to our PowerPoint and make some notes. So you may want to read along. You may want to just listen. I'm going to read from the New King James, my Schofield version. Numbers 22:1. Then the children of Israel moved and camped in the plains of Moab on the side of the Jordan across from Jericho. I may want to share with you, go ahead and share with you a map. We kind of want to teach as we go on part of this. We're looking at an area, and I'm sorry those of you who have called in can't see the map, north of the Dead Sea. This would be in what's called Judea now, north of the Dead Sea. And then we're going to look at a better map here. Right here's the Dead Sea, the plains of Moab. Here's Jericho. The Israelites are on this side, on the east side of the Jordan River, and Jericho is on the west. And the populace of this community in this area are going to be looking over and seeing Israel camped out here on the plains of Moab. This also you might mention in your notes, write down in your notes, this is around 1440 BC. The time at which this happened. Verse 2, now Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And we're seeing the initial conquest of Israel as they march into the promised land. God is with them, and they're conquering the surrounding communities. And why was it so terrifying to these people? Because not only did they kill all the animals, not only did they slay all the males, the Israelites were commanded to kill every living being as they marched through the land, and not only that, to burn everything in sight. The land was so saturated with demonism, God didn't even allow the animals to live. They were all killed. And so you can imagine where the Israelites marched, there was a cloud of smoke behind them. It was horrific. And these people have seen what the Israelites have done, and they understand what serious danger they are in. Verse 3, and Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was sick with dread because of the children of Israel. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this company will lick up everything around us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was the king of the Moabites at that time. Then he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river, in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth, and they are settling next to me. Therefore, please come at once, curse these people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. And so we see here one of the principles that come out of Genesis 12, that Israel, who blesses Israel is blessed, and who curses Israel is cursed. This is nearly the same phrase. But we're going to find out that God is not going to permit what the king wants. Verse 7, so the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the diviner's fee in their hand, a pile of money, in other words. And they came to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak. And he said to them, lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. Then God came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? He's questioning Balaam. He already knows who they are, but he wants Balaam to tell him. Balaam already knows he shouldn't be dealing with these people. He should understand, but he sees the pile of money that they've brought with them. And he says, well, maybe we better confer with the Lord before we kick them out of our house. And so his first mistake is not going with his gut instinct and turning away while they're at the door. And many times when the Jehovah's Witness come to your doorstep, many times the very first thing you ought to do is say, hey, I know what you believe, and I believe a lot differently than you are, so keep your material, and I appreciate your interest in spreading your gospel, but I'm not interested in turning them around. You see how this works? Sometimes you aren't to even entertain the offer. Verse 9, verse 9, yes. Then God came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? So Balaam said to God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent to me, saying, look, a people has come out of Egypt, and they cover the face of the earth. Come now and curse them for me, perhaps I shall be able to overpower them and drive them out. And God said to Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Now here, you need to put, probably even in your Bible, the directive will of God. We're going to look at three types of God's will. We're going to look at the directive will. That means when God specifically gives you a command, absolutely not. Do not marry an unbeliever. That's the directive will of God. Will God allow you to marry an unbeliever? That's right. But it's written in His Word. Do not do it. And so, first of all, we see the directive will of God telling Balaam, do not. Verse 13, so Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to give me permission to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Then Balak again sent princes more numerous and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam and said to him, thus says Balak the son of Zippor, please let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will certainly honor you greatly. And at this point, see, they pulled out all the gold coins and all the silver and all the rubies and the jewels and probably some slaves and probably some new Ferrari and everything they could try to get him to come. Therefore, please come, curse these people for me. Then Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now therefore, please, you stay here tonight, and we'll see another problem here. He should have turned him around right there, because if he asked the Lord, what's the Lord going to say? He's going to say, no, you can't go, right? So here's another principle for you. When God says no, He only has to say it once. You don't have to ask again, right? But God, please. And see, that's what Balaam is going to do. He's going to get himself in trouble. Now therefore, please, you also stay here tonight, that I may know what the Lord will say to me. He already knows what He's going to say, but he's going to get himself in trouble by asking you. God came to Balaam at night and said to him, at the men, if the men come to call you, rise and go with them. But only the word which I speak to you, that you shall do. So Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the princes of Moab. Now, there's something significant here, because we don't even understand. Balaam having a donkey is like Balaam having a Z71 four-wheel drive Chevrolet with a leather interior. This is a nice unit. Most people didn't have a donkey in these days, and it was a preferred method of travel. A donkey was a very sure-footed animal, and they were small, they were easy to upkeep, and it was a great way to travel. And so we see here, donkey. He has a donkey, and he's probably gotten it from using his spiritual gift in the wrong way. And Balaam, he's kind of apt to want some things and want money here. Verse 22, then God's anger was aroused because he went. You see that? We know that he should have turned away the second envoy. He should have said, no, 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 we're not doing that. And he did not do so. And so right here we see the righteousness of God is offended, and his justice is about to swing into action. And the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. And he was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. Now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. So the first place, the angel of the Lord, this is probably Jesus Christ himself right here, stopped. And the angel of the Lord's got his sword out. And he's got it two-handed like this right here. You know he's going to sling across? He's going to take Balaam's head right off with the sword. But the donkey sees the angel, and he sees that he's about to kill his master, and he says, whoop, I better preserve my master. And he steers out into a field, knowing that he should stay on the path. So the donkey saves his master's life. So Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back onto the road. And we see it's a female donkey. Yeah. Verse 24, then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on this side and a wall on that side. And the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, and she pushed herself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. And so this is the second time that the donkey has saved Balaam from the edge of the sword. And guess what happens to her? She gets whooped again, struck again. We're going to see the significance of this later. Verse 26, and the angel of the Lord went farther and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. She just lay down. Said, I can't crush him again. I can't turn around. I can't go to the field. I can't do this. I guess I'll just lay down because my master is going to get whacked. And I'm going to save him. She lay down underneath him. So Balaam's anger was aroused, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Verse 28, then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey. Hello, the donkey is about to speak. And here we find out that God will deliver his message to whomever is available. I want to stop and give you a principle in my life. God says to me, not audibly, in Isaiah, he says, who shall I send? And God says to me, I've got a group of believers down there in Clark County that are positive to Bible doctrine. And they want somebody to teach them in the same way they've been taught in the past. And we can have a fellowship together. And we can have a renewal because the same people have the same belief system. And we can have a body of believers that can have impact in the angelic conflict. And I need somebody just to go down there and just teach them and just review them and just renew them on the same things that they already heard, but they need to hear it again because that's the way the Word of God works. You hear it over and over. And I'm standing there just like Isaiah does, and he says, Lord, here I am, send me. Well, the donkey here is saying, I will speak. And so the donkey is going to give a message to Balaam. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, because you have abused me. Isn't that amazing that the donkey saved his life 3 times, and Balaam believes that he has been abused. And this is just like a carnal individual. You can try to steer them in the right way. You can try to help them. And guess what? They'll look at you and say, you self-righteous Christian. You think you're better than me. And guess what? You're trying to help them. And so this is what Balaam does to the donkey. Because you have abused me, I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. And this is the same attitude you will get when you try to help someone sometimes. So the donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey which you have ridden ever since I became yours to this day? I love the sarcasm of the donkey. Who says the Bible doesn't use sarcasm? Have I not ridden for you the same way every day? And like some older donkey. Have I ever veered off the path out into a field? Balaam's thinking, well, no, she's never done that. Have I ever crushed your foot against the wall? Well, no, she's never done that. Maybe you should be thinking to yourself, there's something wrong for this animal to be doing that. There's something. Have I ever laid down in the road on you before? Well, Balaam said, no, I haven't done that. Was I ever disposed to do this to you? And he said, no. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed his head and fell on his face. The angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you, because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely I would also have killed you by now and let her live. Isn't that amazing that the animal deserves living more than the man? I'm going to stop at this point and I'm going to give you some points on Balaam's donkey and about animals in general, because this is so fun, right? I actually have this. Point number 1 on Balaam's donkey. Animals are a logistical grace provision. That's point number 1. Animals are a logistical grace provision. Now, it just so happened that we used to use animals like this for transportation, and now they're more of a pet or a recreational activity for most people, if you're not Amish or anything like that. But God gave us animals for a provision. Now, isn't it amazing that we use animals now to treat illnesses? We found out that autism can be treated with animal therapy. Our friend in Israel, David Rubin, they use horses to help treat children who have been in terrorist attacks. Animal therapy is a big deal, and this is one of the reasons that God gave us animals. Now, you know, God gave us mules to plow our gardens, yes, and He gave us horses to win battles on, and we understand all the applications of animals, but the number 1 purpose of animals on earth is God gives them to us as a logistical grace provision, and we can see grace in our animals, and just like having a cat to catch mice, we can see all of these things. Point number 2, animals have a format soul, complete with personality, and so every animal has its own personality, and we understand this. They do not, you hear this saying, animals are people too. That is not true. Animals are not people too, because they do not have a rational soul like you do. In other words, they cannot resolve an angelic conflict. You cannot evangelize that dog. You understand that? You can preach the gospel to that dog all day long, but she can't respond to it. You understand that? And that's the reason animals are not people too. They only have a format soul, but it is complete with a personality. And many times we see emotion even in animals. Point number 3, some animals are smarter than some humans. And at this point we see Balaam get shunned by his animal. And we have to point number 2, the donkey uses sarcasm. And point number 3, the donkey is smarter than Balaam. Isn't that amazing? And my daughter and I ride horses, and I have learned that before you discipline a horse, find out why they're acting up, because it may be something that you are doing. And you have to review everything that you are doing, including the weather. There might be a rock in their foot. You don't know what's going on. They may have a thorn. They may have a sore. You have to figure out what's going on with the animal before you can supply discipline. So in this way, some animals are smarter than some humans. And it is amazing. We have these dogs that go into battle now, and many times you'll see a canine unit. They'll grab their officer by the pants leg to try to keep them from going forward, or they'll block the path. And you'll hear the story. Well, there was a landmine right there I was about to step on, and my dog stopped me. And so animals many times are smarter, and this goes along with our story. Point number 4, therefore we should not be so arrogant that we cannot learn what they are telling us. And we understand that animals speak to us in different language, and they have their own language. And I love watching even wild animals as they communicate. And last year I was out bow hunting, and there were 2 foxes that came out of a den, and they were in this thicket. And these foxes got up on a log, and they began to communicate with each other. And it was amazing to me to hear them talk to one another out there in the woods where they were being watched and did not know. Point number 4, Balaam's donkey recognized the danger and delivered him from execution. And so we see as part of the permissive will of God, God let Balaam leave the house, but the door that he opened wasn't the right door to go through, and then Balaam was just going to get killed. The donkey saved him. And so there's a principle here. Every door that swings open is not by divine will. You've thought of that? If God told you no, don't go there, and the door opens, and you say, well, that must be God's will because the door opened. No, the door opened for Balaam, and it wasn't God's will. It was his permissive will. Balaam struck the donkey 3 times in anger. There's significance to this. Balaam struck the donkey 3 times in anger. We're going to draw an analogy from the 3 strikes. When Balaam gets to King Balak's territory, he's going to be hired. He's only going to get paid when he fulfills what he's going to get hired to do. He's going to get hired to curse Israel on 3 different occasions. Except that we're going to find out that God's not going to allow him to curse Israel. He's not going to get paid for that. The 3 strikes on the donkey. The donkey represents Israel. The donkey did not deserve the strikes, the discipline. You see that? And Balaam gave them anyway. And so we see here the innocent is Israel, and Balaam is seeking to punish them. And we see that he struck the donkey 3 different times, and he's going to attempt to curse Israel 3 different times, except God is not going to allow it. And so if you felt sorry for the donkey, guess what? It's the same way you feel about Israel when the people are anti-Semitic. Point number 6, donkey delivers a humiliating message to Balaam. See, here's what's funny. Balaam thought he was the greatest preacher in all the land. He had the greatest clothing. He could speak. He was eloquent. He had a team assembled. He had his servants there. He had his A1, Z71 transportation. He was going to roll up in style. And the donkey delivers a humiliating message to Balaam because of Balaam's arrogance. Point number 7, Any old stick will do. Any old stick will do. God used the donkey to deliver the message to Balaam, which we still share today. That means he can use you. That means he can use you. And you say, well, I don't know a lot. Guess what? God will give you somebody to help who needs to understand exactly the way you understand it. Any old stick will do. In just the same way as the donkey, God doesn't take away your personality or your sarcasm. So there's Balaam's donkey. Now I want to go back to the story. Verse 34. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displeases you, I will turn back. Now, Balaam confesses his sin here. He says, well, I've done wrong. And now the angel of the Lord, Jesus Christ, is going to allow Balaam to go ahead and go, and he's going to use Balaam to bless Israel. Verse 35. Then the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with the men, but only the word that I speak to you, that you shall speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. And when Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him in the city of Moab, which is on the border of the Arnon, the boundary of the territory. And when Balak said to Balaam, did I not earnestly send to you, calling for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you? And Balaam said to Balak, look, I have come to you now. Have I any power at all to say anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that I must speak. So Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath Huzoth. Then Balak offered oxen and sheep, and he sent some to Balaam and to princes who were with him. So it was the next day that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal. Baal was the demon god. This was actually Satan worship. That from there he might observe the extent of the people. He's going to look down from the mountain, and he's going to look across the Jordan River, and he's going to see the Israelites camped out on the plains. Chapter 23. Then Balaam said to Balak, build 7 altars for me here, and prepare for me here 7 bulls and 7 rams. And Balak did just as Balaam had spoke. And Balak and Balaam offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, stand by your burnt offering, and I will go. Perhaps the Lord will come to me. And whatever he shows me, I will tell you. So he went to a desolate height. And God met Balaam, and he said to him, I have prepared the 7 altars, and I have offered on each altar a bull and a ram. Then the Lord, this is significant because we understand that Balaam's a believer. And every animal sacrifice looks forward to the cross, where Jesus Christ himself would sacrifice himself on the cross. Then the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth, and he said, return to Balak, and thus you shall speak. And so he returned to him, and there he was standing by his burnt offering, and he said, and he and all the princes of Moab. And he took up his oracle and said, now Balaam is going to speak a blessing over Israel here, and he's going to be, the Spirit is going to give him the words. And this is significant because he is standing in a place of demon worship. And for hundreds of years, human sacrifices have been happening here on the trees of this mountain to the god Baal. And this was terrible, terrible type of demon worship that had happened right here. And all of a sudden, Balaam is going to pronounce a blessing on Israel from this place. He says, Balak, the king of Moab, has brought me from Aram, from the mountains of the east. Come curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? How shall I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? From the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. There, a people dwelling alone, not reckoning itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, or number 1/4 of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my end be like this. And so Balaam pronounces a blessing. Then Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, and look, you have blessed them bountifully. So he answered and said, must I not take heed to speak what the Lord has put in my mouth? We're going to find out that the king takes Balaam to 2 different mountaintops to look at the children of Israel, look over and see them, and to pronounce a curse, and that Balaam does not. And as a matter of fact, he blesses Israel, and he gives prophecies about the nation of Israel and about Messianic kingdom to come. I want to start with the doctrine of Balaam. And what I want to do is give you some points on the doctrine of Balaam. We may not finish this today, but we need to look at some points, and some of these will be reviewed. I don't know if you'll want to record these or not, but you need to listen. Balaam was a Gentile believer and a prophet. 2 Peter 2:15 and 16 says this. We understand that Balaam was not a Jew, and he didn't come out of Egypt, but God raised him up in the land. And truly as a prophet, he would have spoke about the Messiah. He would have been able to evangelize the people. And we see that Balaam did not use the spiritual gift in the correct way. Balaam's weakness was money and things. We know he was greedy. He wanted the cash. He wanted the money. But we also know that he had a donkey and he had slaves. He had servants. He had a big enough house to have these princes stay with him overnight. So he had the setup, and it was from distorting his gift. Balaam received the directive will of God. Do not go the first time. That's his directive will. God's permissive will allowed him to go. That's point number 4. God's permissive will. We need to understand that God will permit you to do things that aren't right. And don't go out there, and here's what happens to you. You go out there and you get into something that you know is wrong, and you say, well, I know what discipline gives me, that I'll figure out when to quit. I'll go out here and wait till the shock hits me, and then I'll turn around. Well, guess what? That last shock, the shock that you get may be your last shock. God may not give you an opportunity. He may just let you go right out there and die the sin unto death. And so if God tells you no, don't go out there and test the water. God's permissive will allowed him to go. Point number 5. God's overruling will made him bless Israel. And so Balaam had no control over what he was about to do. He wanted the money. He was going to curse him. But the Lord gave him the words. He spoke truth using the Holy Spirit. And he overruled and made him bless Israel. Balaam's scar tissue. This is point number 6. Balaam's scar tissue, hardness of heart, greed, and anti-Semitism caused him to reject Israel as God's chosen nation. I'll read it again. Balaam's scar tissue, you can put ST, hardness of heart, HOH, greed, and anti-Semitism caused him to reject Israel as God's chosen nation. Isn't it amazing that even though he pronounced these blessings upon Israel, Balaam did not go down to the Israelites and say, look, I'm a prophet of Jehovah. I'm a prophet of the Lord, and I'm here to bless you. He didn't do that. You would think that, their God is my God. I need to go down and I need to make myself part of their kingdom. He didn't do it. He was a Gentile, and he was anti-Semitic. He hated Israel for what they were doing. And his scar tissue and his greed caused him to turn against Israel. We're going to find out that he fought against Israel. Point number 7, Balaam gave away Israel's weakness. He wasn't able to curse Israel those 3 times. But this was Balaam's. This was his. This is what gave him the sin unto death. This is what sent him away, the sin unto death. Balaam said, okay, Balak, you see that I couldn't, he's over here to the side. Balak, you see I couldn't curse God's will. I couldn't do it. But if you'll take some of your good-looking girls, and you'll take some that know how to worship Baal, and you let them go down there into the camp. Take your best-looking one now, and send them down into the camp, and find some men down there, find some young men down there that are interested, and you can preoccupy them, and you can get them mixed up, and you can cause them to be backslidden. He said that's their weakness, women. And we find out that through the times of Israel, when they got ready to go on to the 5th cycle of discipline, it was always a problem. Sexual sin. So Balaam gave away Israel's weakness, Numbers 31:16. And a principle comes out from this. This is point number 8. The doctrine of Balaam. This is the whole point that summarizes the whole doctrine of Balaam. The doctrine of Balaam reveals one principle of the false teacher. So you could put false teacher equals. They promote the operation of the flesh. They promote Operation Sin Nature. So you get the false prophet, the false teacher, the false evangelist, the super apostles in the New Testament, the Gnostic people who were pushing Gnosticism, who were studying in Colossians. They promote the operation of the flesh. Here's some ways they do it now. First way, point A, category, how they do this. Hyper-emotionalism. They promote emotionalism. Isn't it amazing that this is almost taken over the whole Christian world? We're going to try to cultivate up an emotion for you. And isn't it amazing that you listen to people that come from church and they say, well, that message that didn't really touch me today. That's what they say. I didn't really feel it today. That's what they say. Because they've been trained on emotion, and if they don't have some kind of emotional outpouring at church, they believe that they've not had a good worship service. It's amazing. And the false teachers are promoting this type of thing. They go out high on emotion with no answers for life. They point number B, under how the false teacher promotes the operation of the flesh. Letter B, the do-do syndrome. Going to get you busy for Jesus, doing something. Oh, you don't have anything to do. Well, we've got this. Well, we've got that. Look, the first thing that needs to happen to you as a new believer is you need a crash course in Bible doctrine. You need to eat, sleep, and take. You need blisters from taking notes. You need to get into the basic series. You need to get a categorical notebook. You need to study, not do. And as you study, God prepares you along the way to use you as you go. And where you go, the door will open every once in a while, depending on your situation. And so we grow in grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And then God opens the door along the way for us to use our spiritual maturity. Letter C, under how the false teachers promote operation of the flesh. They promote the sweetness and light personality. In other words, it's a personality church. They promote one type of personality, and we've all seen it before. All sweetness and light. And this can be a problem because you get people who are ascetic, and you get them all joined together in one church, and then what you've got is a bunch of sweetness and light all together in one church. And it's just a personality type of church. And then we have the candy store churches. This is letter D. How does the false teacher promote operation of the flesh? I've just given you a few points here. They can't want to dress everybody up the same. Have a fashion show. Get the best looking people in town all going to one church. All having a fashion show, all in one place. Now, isn't it amazing that only about 2% of the human race will qualify as model material? And yet we try to gather them all together. And there's nothing wrong with being good looking, and there's nothing wrong with having a church full of good looking people. But look, don't promote this type of thing. We need all kinds of people, and we don't need to all look the same. And E, letter E, approbation lust. Pin the tail on the donkey. That's what I like to call it. Will you please stand up while we give you a pause? So-and-so worked in the nursery 18 days out of this year. So-and-so bought the hymnals. So-and-so painted the walls. So-and-so did this. So-and-so did that. And it plays in approbation lust, and if they don't mention your name and you're working, oh, you get so sour and you go somewhere that you find a church that will. Isn't it amazing that Glenn Beck, he said the reason he chose the Mormon church is because they made him feel at home and happy. They gave him the approbation lust that he needed, and they honored his flesh, what his flesh needed. And I like Glenn Beck to a certain extent. But approbation lust is a key factor in the false teacher in the operation of the flesh. Point number 9, Balaam never got to enjoy his money. Balaam got paid when he sent the young women down to the camp. 24,000 Israelite men died because they gave in to these women. They were seduced by them. And a plague broke out in the camp. 24,000 of them died. And we see that later on, after they got recovered from that deal, they came and made war against the Moabites, and Balaam fought with Balak against Israel, and he got gutted. Even though he got paid, guess what happened? He got killed on the mountains, and he never got to enjoy his money. That's happened in Numbers 31:8. Now, isn't it amazing that the donkey probably outlived Balaam, and she probably got to be free in the mountains after his death. I'm not sure what happened to her, but we'll find out when we get to heaven. There's the doctrine of Balaam. I want to thank you for your attention.